Before the railway, noon in Bristol happened roughly 10 minutes after noon in London, and nobody gave a damn. They had no reason to. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Human Pulse podcast, where we talk about living well with technology. I am Ann Trager, a human potential and performance coach.
And I'm Fabrice Newman, a tech consultant for small businesses.
This is episode 37, recorded on June 7, 2026.
Human Pulse is usually never longer than 30 minutes, so let's get started.
You shared this fascinating blog post by Joan Westenberg with me about that moment in history, or a moment in history, when tech changed how we human beings function as a whole. That technology was the railway, and in order to catch a train, everybody needed to be on the same time, which was not the case before that. So our conception of time before that was actually a lot more variable and a lot less important, to us, okay? And, you know, she says that when the railways came with their schedules, and this is a quote, "That moment is, I believe, when we started losing our hold on the present. Before the railway, time belonged to the place where you stood, but the railway needed a common minute or it didn't run." So that was in 1840 when the railway was introduced. So what happened next, and I mean, if we skip forward a few decades, okay, is that those common hours, okay, so first of all, they became common to everyone. And then what happened in 1911 is they became a commodity. And that's with a fellow named Frederick Winslow Taylor, who introduced a concept called scientific management to industrial productivity. So we're in, you know, the full industrial revolution stuff. And productivity was important. And now they were measuring that in terms of time. So people were trading time for money. And that time needed to be optimized. So, and I'll just stop there and invite everyone to read Joan Westenberg's blog and to see where she goes from there in her very, very thoughtful article. What came up for me immediately when I read this was that when we jump forward to today, and we are all in this huge acceleration of time, rushing faster and faster, optimizing all the time. You know, I'm always saying, but to what end? But to what end are we doing this? I mean, really, why? So, and now AI is on everybody's to-do list to figure out how to do more faster. Again, to what end? Okay. And from what I'm seeing working with people in corporate, which I do all day long, is that it's not actually to reduce load, although you'd think that would be something to do, but rather to be more productive, so that instead of, you know, say managing a few workflows, you're expected to manage many, many more workflows. So we just keep adding load onto load onto load. And so for me, there's a disconnect between that kind of optimization and another kind of optimization, which would actually free up time. And that's not what we're doing at all. We're still just having time that is more and more and more full, like beyond full. So that's the first thing that comes up for me. And the second question that came up for me is a whole lot larger, which is, so if the railways stole the concept of now from us, what part of humanity is AI stealing from us?
Yeah, that's deep, this question. So let's rewind a little bit. We've often talked here about, you know, already about how everything, and when I'm in this context, everything, I'm meaning every tech disruption, you know, everything is going faster. And as far as AI is concerned, and more specifically generative AI, we can argue that we are already in the third phase of what started in November 2022 with ChatGPT, like to underline the fact that it's going very, very fast. So the first phase was, the chatbots, right? So we humans talk to AI through chatbots, first phase. It took us maybe, I don't know, a year and a half to master that. When I say we, you know, there's this statistic of how many people use OpenAI's ChatGPT I think it's every week, and it reached somewhat quickly 900 million people every week, active users. This is huge. Second phase are the agents, where basically it means these are AIs talking to AIs to do things on our behalf, right? And third phase, which we might be entering now, is where AI is replacing everything, basically the developers, the apps themselves, because who needs apps when we can just ask for a result, which can lead to so many disrupting things, if not breaking things. Like, for example, if we ask AI for a web search and we get an answer, it might mean the death of the web, because we don't need to go to a website anymore. But then who will make a website in order to feed the AIs if nobody goes to the website? Because the AIs, they don't look at the banner ads, because this is what we're talking about. When you, aside from a personal website, you want to make money with it. Yeah. If you don't have anyone reading the banner ads, then you don't make any money, and so you don't make the website. So
well, and then if AI replaces everybody and nobody has a job, then nobody has any money to use the AI. And well, anyway, it's a downward spiral. I don't even want to go
that's
there.
Basically.
Right now.
If we follow this line of thought, the answer to your question, what part of humanity is AI stealing from us? The answer might be, well, everything that's left. Because if we abandon all kind of creativity, which is in a way one definition of what a human being is, if we abandon it to the black box that AI is, and even more so if this AI is actually a conglomerate of AIs working together, why make the effort?
Yeah, that's a very dark thought. So much for trying to be positive about AI, right?
It's hard, isn't it?
It's hard. And at the same time, I think this is where we must use our agency. And we've spoken about this before as well. After all, I mean, we still have our agency as human beings. That means that we can still choose how we use these tools, at least for the time being. So, while we still can, and we can also still choose what part of our humanity we want to cultivate. I mean, ultimately, that's the ultimate freedom that AI is giving us. If we do look at this positively, is that because we no longer have obligations, if AI does everything for us, and then, we find some other economic model so that, we can all live joyfully while AI and the robots do the things for us or whatever, what that gives us is this huge amount of freedom to cultivate the parts of our humanity we want to cultivate. That said, I'm trying to be positive here, but that said, we as human beings will always take the path of least resistance, unless we decide very purposefully to expend some extra energy to force ourselves to do the hard thing or to do the principled thing. All of that takes extra energy. If it takes extra energy, why am I going to do it? So it requires a lot of effort to develop those parts of humanity. I mean, I think that I'm just coming to the conclusion that I'm thinking out loud here, that maybe freedom is a lot harder than we think it is. And so AI might be able to do everything for us, but what will we choose to continue to do just for the sake of doing it? Because that's what we're talking about in this ultimate vision. And I think that when you ask that question, that we can imagine a dark dystopian vision of bored street gangs causing trouble for excitement. That's one extreme. Or the other extreme, which is a brighter, more positive future of people exploring their creativity and human relationships and whatnot. I mean, what humans do, we're creative and we try to get along with other people and we find excitement in that. So I'm a whole lot focused on the latter. And I think actually it's rather urgent that we start really thinking about those choices. Like, what do we want to focus on if we are given that ultimate freedom of not having to do all the other stuff that we do? Anyway, I really don't know what this means for the day-to-day. I'm just thinking out loud.
No, well, I think it's absolutely to the point. The idea is, and the word freedom is very important in that context, I believe, which is to say we still learning how to use those tools. And I have an example about that right after that. But because they are changing so rapidly, our learning curve is very steep. And so we don't know what we are going to do with those tools. And sometimes some tools disappear before we know what to do with them. And so we need to start the cycle again. Another beep cycle, maybe, as we mentioned in the last episode.
Yeah.
And
so at least it's keeping us occupied, right?
Well, some would say that it's a way for the AI to keep us looking the other way.
Oh, potentially. Oh man, I hadn't thought of it that way. This just keeps going back and forth. between, bright future, dystopian future, anyway.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, so yeah. And so the example I was mentioning right before that is because it also relates to this always same question of trust. So for example, do we actually trust those black boxes to be right all the time? And so I guess we can say today that no, we know hallucinations, just mistakes. Did we mention this thing about, I think we did that maybe last week, the last episode, where some people are introducing spelling mistakes in their AI writing because in order to make believe that they actually wrote it and not the AI, because the AI doesn't make mistake, right? We talked about that.
Well, so that's just going to feed right back into the AI, and then AI is going to start making spelling mistakes.
My point exactly. So the question of trust here is difficult. But then, so one example. So David Pierce is journalist for The Verge. He tried the newly announced Spark AI model by Google during the last Google I/O conference. And it's basically an agent of the third kind, as I described before. And he basically asked this model, which is not available for public use yet, to create a week-long program for vacation, with his family in Pennsylvania, I believe it was. And that's the only details he gave, right? And the results were incredible in many ways. Basically, with this very small amount of details, the model was able to determine that the model knows his family, because David Pierce has been using Gmail since 2004, its creation, right? So the model knows that he has 2 kids. He has a wife and a dog. And it also knows the dietary restrictions for everybody. And so the whole week was planned with hotels, Airbnbs, and restaurant bookings corresponding to the dietary restrictions and the fact whether dogs were accepted or not, right? And he was kind of flabbergasted and also scared because there were things that in his mind he never told Google to be general about it or generic. And still the model was able to create all of that. But then question is, if the AI does everything, if it decides so let me rephrase that. If AI decides my vacation, is it really my vacation? Do I want this?
These are great questions.
Because, and when I put the question of trust in there is that, once again, in order for this to work as advertised, notably by Google for years, for Gmail and also the Google Assistant basically being able to do things for you, you have to give the system as much information about yourself as possible, And because the more it knows, the better it serves you. Was it true yesterday with the Google Assistant that Google kept talking about? I'm not convinced. But is it true today thanks to AI or because of AI? That's the whole thing. And if it is capable of doing that, do we want that?
Yeah, we've talked about trust before. It seems that it's really easy to give away our information for some short-term gain. I mean, without thinking about it too much, and we've all done it. And yes, it is kind of scary. And it's also kind of cool that it can plan my vacation. I mean, how boring is it going through? Do you remember when we had to use guidebooks and you had to go through the different pages and stuff? I mean, that was dates me. But it was also kind of cool because then
arguably, I don't want to be the Luddite here, but then, it's also the same argument from people saying, what's the purpose of a trip? Is it the destination or the trip itself?
Yeah, or doing it. So absolutely. So if it does everything for me, which is kind of cool, then there's a lot less serendipity. And I think that as much as we want ease, I told you we human beings, we just love the least resistance. As much as we want that, maybe in the end, ease is kind of boring. And worse than that, I would say, earlier I was saying that this kind of AI could give us the ultimate freedom, but maybe actually it doesn't. Maybe it boxes us in, because if AI thinks that I'm like this and then I do this and I want this and then makes the decisions for me, then I don't have any room to change my mind. And changing your mind is actually the ultimate freedom, right?
Yes.
So what if I change my mind before AI catches on and I end up going on a vacation I don't want to be on? I mean, no, it sounds ridiculous when you're talking about vacation, but this can apply in many different ways. I already get a little itchy when people box me in, and they said, Anne always does this, or Anne is like that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe I was last week. And I understand that your brain works on this, pattern recognition thing, but I'm not like that anymore. So please see me. I'm not the only one who feels that way. So
No.
anyway, I like changing my mind. I like, being different. And here I go drifting a little bit. But I think it's really important because it's about fundamental freedom of being who you are in the now, not who you were yesterday, not who you will be tomorrow, and not having to be categorized by AR or guided by AI in a specific direction, which maybe is advertising oriented or something else. I don't know. It's all also kind of creepy that a machine would know that much about me. Like I said, it makes me feel boxed in. It makes me feel defined. It makes me feel determined, as if it were really taking away that freedom of mine. And I don't think I know how much of my freedom will I trade for ease? That is the ultimate question. And I'm not sure that I know the right answer for that, if I'm truly honest, because I want it to be easy like everybody else. And I want my freedom like it, like a lot of people too. So I don't know. I don't have an answer. Again, just following my thoughts.
Yeah. So the one thing interesting in that is it seems that we demonstrated time and again that actually the system is always late on who you are. Because this is very important what you said. I don't want to be taken for what I was, but for what I am in the now. And the machine, even, you can give it as much as you can. It still doesn't know what you are now and what you will be. It's just inference.
Well, and then what I strive to be, and then what what my aspirations are.
Exactly. And in that regard, I was struck once again by how visionary the author Isaac Asimov was, because it reminded me, this discussion we had and we are having now, reminded me of a short novel called Liar! ! Which was published in 1941.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it's about a robot, it's within the robot series. Asimov is obviously very famous for that. And there's a malfunction in one robot that was just produced, and this robot can actually read human thoughts.
Yikes.
Okay.
Yeah, but we've also talked about some of the tech out there that is striving to do that. Okay.
Well,
yes.
Yeah, but so to me, it's the epitome of what we described, which is you don't give old information to your AI. It's like this AI, obviously, Asimov was not using the term AI, although robots are equipped with positronic brains, but it's a version of AI because basically those robots think. And this one can read thoughts. But this robot also has to follow those three rules of robotics, mainly making sure that it will not harm any human beings or by inaction, blah, 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 stuff like that. So I don't think it's a spoiler for something that old, but at the end, so the problem this robot has is that because he can, let's say because they say he in the novel, he can read thoughts and he doesn't want to harm the humans he's talking to. So he has to lie to tell the person he's talking to, one-to-one exactly what the person in front of him wants to hear, right? All to the end where two people with different thoughts talk to the robot at the same time, and so the robot stops functioning because he doesn't know what to say. He can't.
Yeah. That's
right?
so interesting.
Right.
So I think it would be worthwhile for any of our listeners who might not remember the 3 laws of robotics to actually bring them up, because when we think about the chatbots that we're talking to now and that with which we're entrusting all of our information, I'm not sure that there are any laws of robotics behind that to protect human beings. So
here they are. They are, as designed by Isaac Asimov in the 40s or maybe even before. First law: a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. Second law: a robot must obey the orders given it by human beings except where such orders would conflict with the first law. Third law: a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law.
So maybe I think it's worthwhile bringing those back up, maybe.
Yeah, well, the thing is, obviously, it's easier said than done.
Yes, absolutely.
all the meanings of the terms, because how do you put that in equations? We still have those discussions with the self-driving cars. When you put those robots on wheels in front of unanswerable questions,
Yeah.
if it determines that if it turns left, it is going to bump into 2 people, and on the right is going to bump into 3 people. How does it choose?
Yeah.
It's not answerable in a way that a human being cannot answer that question either. And so we should not expect a robot to make better decisions than us in those kind of situations. But the thing is, with this short novel by Asimov, the questions were already there. So we cannot go further, I think. I cannot imagine anything than, as far as information giving or data giving, than a machine that can read into my thoughts. And so we could argue that, for example, for the beginning of the discussion we had, if a GenAI chatbot knows what I think, I would not even have to ask it to send it a prompt to obtain what I want. So if you stop here, this like, oh my goodness, this is fantastic. I want that. But do I?
But do I? Yeah, but no, because I mean, isn't the interest in day-to-day life? If we get back to that, the interest is the friction, it's the texture, it's having to work for things makes you want something more. Whereas if you can have it with such ease that you don't have to do anything. I mean, so what do you do? I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. You see, I'm flabbergasted. I'm like that robot. I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to shut down. Okay.
But so it brings us back to the question we also mentioned here many times, which is, and it's one of my pet peeves and questions. Why are we trying so hard as human beings to replace ourselves with machines?
Yeah.
And the whole thing about artificial intelligence is predicated on the fact that we want to create something that can think like us, and it might not be the right goal, actually. And we may be advancing towards that wall of realize that this is not the right goal.
And at the same time, I think that a lot of, let's not negate the incredible advances that are happening right now as well. And we've talked about them. Yeah. And these tools are really very useful. So it's just on the edge of, yes, let's keep learning to use these tools, but learning to use them with agency and intelligence and in a way that is going to allow us to have our freedom and to continue to exist in a positive way. And I don't know, maybe I'm being a little, naive there, but really, I think that people are working in that direction.
Well, let's be naive. I mean, there are examples. And so let's try to end this on a positive note. For example, just to prepare this episode, I gave my AI of choice MP3s of a couple of podcasts, I had listened to, but I want to get some quotes or some ideas. And so I could just give the MP3 and ask the tool, I think this guy talked about this. Find me the quote that says this. And the question was not exactly asked the right way, but the tool found the quotes anyway, right? Mm-hmm. And in order to be also positive, I was, since I have a few years under my belt already, so I had to change the MP3 format because the AI tool could not, the file was too big. And so I had to transform it. And I did that on my 6-year-old laptop. And the whole an hour and a half MP3 podcast was converted in less than a minute and a half, right? Thanks to AI, thanks to the powerful machines that we have. And I was reminded of the machine I used 20 years ago, which would have taken 2 hours to convert something that's an hour and a half long. So it's amazing. And we have those tools at our fingertips. It's fantastic. And also, I wanted to mention that I have clients dabbling into AI, to help them produce documents. But these people, they are very aware of their data and they want to protect it. So they want to stay in control using the tools. They're going somewhat slowly. And I think it's the right approach, right? Basically, the human approach of learning what a new tool can do and put it to use in a contained framework, which is exactly what we discussed. And this is what they do. And that's the difference between the AI tool creators, those big companies we have today. They want us to use those tools more and more because this is how they hope they can make money. It's not yet sure about that. But so this is the hope I have, which is like doing all my career in tech with the normies, the normal people. They question the tools, and this is why we have cycles as well that we mentioned last week. We have cycles because we change. Whatever the tools we use or we are quote unquote forced to use, we question our future and the use of these tools. Just like the social media today, this is where I think we are still human, because we get tools, we use those tools, and then we get rid of tools because we don't like them anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Well, I think that's it for episode 37. Thank you all for joining us. Visit humanpulsepodcast.com for links and past episodes.
Thank you also for subscribing and reviewing this wherever you listen to your podcast. It helps other people find us. You can also share this with one person or as many people as you like around you. We would really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And we'll see you in more or less 2 weeks.
Bye, everyone.